Welcome back to Wiltfong's Whiparound. I'm Steve Wiltfong with 24/7 Sports. Big thanks to Chris Belcher and Jason in the studio. And of course, Trey Scott for his creative influence. It's August 9th. It's 3 p.m. Eastern. It's Tuesday. And we're live. We're coming off another exciting recruiting weekend. We saw uber athletic linebacker Darian Gillette commit to Texas. We'll have much more on the Longhorns later in the show. They have the number 5 class in the land. USC, they beat Texas for top 247 defensive lineman, edge rusher Braylon Shelby as the Trojans start to add key pieces around the line of scrimmage. It's promising with guys like Shelby and Grant Bucky, those 6'5 presences around the line of scrimmage. USC is the number 12 class in the country. They need more guys like that. They're moving to the Big Ten. I was just talking to my buddy Greg Biggins, my colleague out west. USC, they could get away with being a little soft in the Pac-12 around the line of scrimmage. Need more power, more difference makers up front on both sides of the ball. Micah Banuelos, Shelby, Bucky. Those are guys that I think that they can win in the Big Ten with. Need a lot of more. LSU landed 5-star receiver Shelton Sampson Jr. Tigers have the number 8 recruiting class in the country. We're going to talk about them later in the show. Miami, they beat the powerhouse programs. One of America's top centers, Connor Lew. You know, he's an ass kicker up front that looked hard at Auburn, Clemson, and Georgia. He's in the fold with Miami. Hurricanes have the number 9 class in the country. They're trying to reel in the best offensive line in the hall in the country. We've seen Mario Cristobal and company do that before. Ohio State, they have the number 2 class in America, number 3 class in America. Big in-state recruiting win, Arvell Reese. I saw him back in the winter. He's a twitched-up specimen that could do a lot of things in the front 7. Could be the next great Buckeyes player out of Glenville. But I want to start this show with Notre Dame, Chris. The Irish had 4 commits going back to last Thursday, 3 in the 2022 class. Linebacker, safety, flex, Jaden Osberry, safety, Ben Minnick, running back, Dylan Edwards, and then 4-star offensive lineman, Peter Jones in the 2024 class. The Irish sit at number 1 in the 2023 and 2024 recruiting standings. Let's kind of zero in on these 2023 guys. All 3 of them announced on the 24/7 Sports platform. So if you missed coverage from those events, you can find that on this channel and make sure you hit the like button. But Dylan Edwards, he's the fastest offensive player that Notre Dame's recruited since Chris Tyree, who I think is really going to blossom this year and be a difference maker for the Irish. Has that Will Fuller type speed. He's a 5'7" dynamic playmaker that can do things in space, stretch the field, punt return, kick return, gadget guy, jet sweep. He's going to be a fun component for Tommy Rees and company to move around that offense in years to come. Minnick, a smart, very good athlete. He's got a 10-400 meter dash to his name, probably more in the 10-7 range. I think that was a 10-4 win aided, but he obviously can run. An athletic safety that can match up against the best teams in the country. That's what Notre Dame's trying to do here. Make no mistake, these recruiting classes that Marcus Freeman and company are trying to assemble, they're trying to find 2 more wins at the end of the year. You know, this team, they've been fun to watch during regular seasons. They've played in some New Year's 6 games. They've played in some college football playoffs. They want to go further. Jaden Osberry, a hybrid linebacker safety, 6 foot, 200 pounds with coverage ability. He's a good athlete, can maybe play big nickel, a rover backer, can play inside, but you know he can run, you know he's athletic, and those are 3 more big pickups for the number 1 class in the country. Will they stay number 1? Well, to stay number 1, they got to keep Keon Keeley in the fold, the number 1 edge rusher, and they got to keep Peyton Bowen, the one of the top safeties in the country who Oklahoma and Texas A&M are working to flip. Obviously, it's Alabama and Notre Dame for Keon Keeley. That first game of the season against Ohio State on the road at night, Chris and Jason, is another opportunity for Notre Dame to show that they are an upper echelon program on Saturdays against those elite opponents. Ohio State's the number 2 team in the country. Notre Dame's number 5. We haven't seen Notre Dame win a ball game like that. It's been a long time since Notre Dame has come. They're 2 touchdown underdogs, I think, Chris. Does that sound accurate? You follow that? 14.5 points, I think, is the spread right now. So nobody is expecting Notre Dame to play well in this ball game against Ohio State because past history says that they're going to get thumped against an opponent like that on a stage like this. But I think that Notre Dame has a good football team that they're going to run out there. They're extremely veteran on defense. When you look at Notre Dame on defense, their front 7 or 8 is all seniors or graduate seniors, and then you get into the secondary and you see more seniors and graduate seniors. So this is going to be a team that's about 21, 22 years old in age across the front. You have Isaiah Foskey, who could be a top 10 pick as an edge rusher. For him to play well against the Buckeyes when you are recruiting against Alabama and that powerhouse, to keep Keon Keeley in the fold down the road, could be massive for Notre Dame. For Brandon Joseph, an All-American who transferred from Northwestern, who always has a knack for being around the football, can make some plays in that game. Maybe that helps you with Peyton Bowen, but more than anything, play well against Ohio State, a team that many are marking as one that can win the national championship, including myself, one that's going to run out there an elite group of wide receivers, C.J. Stroud at quarterback, Travion Henderson in the backfield, a veteran front for themselves on defense. But I think Notre Dame, they're getting that. They've recruited at a high level. They had a top 10 class last year, number 1 this year. This is an opportunity to really sustain where this thing is going for Marcus Freeman and company early on. And look, it's one game. You don't win it. You live to fight another day. You don't play well in it. You live to fight another day. But this is just an opportunity for Notre Dame in a night game, in the shoe, in front of one of the largest crowds in college football, in a game where you're a double dog favorite, to go out there and finally earn some respect in the upper tier. I think no one's arguing that Notre Dame's not a program that's 6-10. I mean, hell, they've proven that year in and year out. But they want to be a program that can win 2 more games at the end of the season. Keon Keeley and Peyton Bowen are players that can help you get there. This is a class that's really off and running for the Irish. But to keep that momentum going, I look at week 1 and see just an awesome opportunity for Marcus Freeman and that staff to go into Columbus, Ohio, a hostile place, and play well. And I'm hearing some good things about new defensive coordinator Al Golden. I think that's just been a tremendous hire, with Marcus Freeman moving down the hall to the corner office, still bringing that juice and energy to the program. But now, a CEO type, Al Golden, he's a smart football coach. He'll get Notre Dame schemed up week in and week out. He'll know how to adjust in games like the one they're going to face against Ohio State, and they're obviously a terrific play caller in Ryan Day. I expect Notre Dame to be disciplined on defense. So I think that game is more intriguing than maybe some people are even giving credit for, because I think Notre Dame, with a veteran offensive line and a defense that's rooted in experience, they have a chance to go into Columbus and play well, and they need it on the recruiting trail to continue if they're going to have a shot to finish number 1. Cedric Baxter, he's announcing his commitment on Wednesday. He's the number 2 running back in the top 247. Texas is the team to beat for Cedric Baxter going into his announcement. And I was hearing buzz for Texas and Cedric Baxter even prior to Arch Manning announcing his commitment to the Longhorns. So if Cedric does indeed pick Texas over the Aggies, who he also visited at the end of his process before setting in his decision date in Miami and Florida, I think that Texas really kind of moved out in front before things became final with Arch Manning. Tashard Choice has done a great job in that recruitment, certainly winning over the family, and then Texas, what they're building, what they can offer student athletes is definitely exciting as well. But Chris, Jason, I just love the way that Texas is recruiting. I think Texas is recruiting the right guys and winning the right recruiting battles as they start to make their way over to the SEC. It's obviously well documented. The 2022 class was the best offensive line haul in America, and guys from that group are already making an impact. If you read the news and notes from Horns 247 and what's being gathered up by Trey Scott and the national desk team at 24/7 Sports, but you got Cole Hudson making an early impact. You feel good about Devin DJ Campbell down the road. When you look at these 2 Texas classes combined, they took in the 2022 cycle, Devin DJ Campbell, the number 1 guard in the country, Calvin Banks, the number 3 offensive tackle in the country per the 24/7 Sports composite. And then they went out and got Malik Agbo. They flip or they beat Oklahoma for Nito Umeozulu, who's the number 4 interior offensive lineman in the country. And we talked about Cole Hudson being in there, and they also they went out for Cameron Williams in the end, who at one point committed to Oregon. Connor Robertson is another offensive lineman that they landed from Austin Westlake. And then you look at this class, Texas has gone out and just landed several more big-bodied, explosive, physical offensive linemen at the point of attack as well, as it's a priority every year. But they go out and they get Connor Stroh, who is one of the more physically impressive, strong players at the point of attack. Trevor Gooseby, they land from in-state. Andre Kojo was a top target for them. Peyton Kirkland, they get late. And then Jaden Chapman, they beat Oklahoma out for. Those 11 offensive linemen or whatever it is, average weight 314 pounds. They're really makeshift in that room and changing what I think is going to be the identity of Texas football with those 2 recruiting classes. But you got to give it time. These guys are teenagers still. What Texas does on the field this year, I'm not too worried about. I know that people are going to put a lot of pressure on Texas this season to play well and start to then, it's easy to be negative on the scene. And I don't know what Texas is going to, Texas hasn't played well. Hasn't played physical football in a while. So with that being said, I think they'll be in a lot of close ball games, and we'll see what happens in the fourth quarter. But I love the trajectory of the program with that top 5 recruiting class last year and what is a class that's ranked number 5 right now. But could be number 3 by next Monday if they land Cedric Baxter and Jordan Matthews, who's committing next Monday. But I just look at the recruiting wins. They're winning the right recruiting battles. They flipped Terrence Brooks, a corner from Ohio State. Jamon Tapp, they go into Louisiana and beat LSU and other SEC programs. Justice Finkley go into the state of Alabama and beat Alabama and Auburn and SEC programs for him. I mean, those were recruiting battles that we haven't seen Texas win in a long time. They flip Ethan Burke late from Michigan, one of the state's top in-state pass rushers, a guy that you just feel like Michigan's won a lot of ball games with guys like Ethan Burke. Texas wants to win a lot of ball games with Ethan Burke. And then here in 2023, Derek Williams, they would love to have him at LSU, but he's in Texas's class right now. We talked about Matthews. Matthews is down to Tennessee and Texas. But LSU, they're going to try hard all the way. Texas is the favorite going into his commitment next Monday. Darian Gillette beating the Aggies for him, one of the more physically impressive and most athletic second-level defenders in the class. Texas is winning the right recruiting battles at the right positions to be able to play smash-mouth football in the SEC. And then, of course, obviously, the way they've recruited quarterbacks is second to none when you look at the portal and Arch Manning and Malik Murphy, Quinn Ewers. And then you look at the speed that they've recruited at wideout, whether it's Brendan Thompson last cycle or Jonte Cook here in this cycle. They're going to be dynamic at the wideout position. And then Cedric Baxter, maybe the heir apparent to Bijan, if he does choose Texas. I like the way it's been trending for Texas for a while. He's known what he's going to do for a while. He's going to announce his college decision tomorrow. I think that's going to be good news for the Longhorns. And so we'll see what happens with that tomorrow. But it's a big week of commitments beyond just Cedric Baxter. You also have Ricky Collins, the top uncommitted quarterback in the country. He's going to announce his college decision on Wednesday, a 4-star recruit. Matthews, his teammate there at Woodlawn High there in Baton Rouge. He's a former Purdue commit that recently reopened his process. Now, he'd been talking to Florida State and LSU for quite some time prior to reopening, even took an official visit to Florida State earlier this summer. But all the buzz is with LSU for him. And Joe Sloan, Brian Kelly, Mike Denbrock, and the new staff has really made an impression on Ricky Collins and his family and his high school coach, Coach Randall over there, who played at LSU, helped LSU win a national championship, played a bunch of different positions over there, Marcus Randall played a bunch of positions at LSU. He's now the head coach of Ricky Collins, has Ricky Collins running a complex high school offense, has him doing things that the traditional high school quarterback doesn't do. talked to Coach Randall earlier this week, and he loves what he's seen from Coach Kelly and this new staff, and compared it to when he got to LSU and when Nick Saban got there at the same time, and just kind of getting everything going in the right direction, getting everything organized, getting everything professional. I think he's been impressed. And if Ricky does pick LSU, I think he thinks that, with what LSU already has in the fold, and then you add Ricky, they can quickly build that thing into a national title contender, similar to what they did back in his day. So you got Ricky Collins coming off the board on Wednesday. I like the way that's going for LSU going into that. Kylan Jackson moved his decision to Saturday. He's out of Zachary High. Still think LSU's the one to beat. A&M's the other program to watch for Kylan Jackson. But you have a chance for Texas to go from 5-3 and LSU from 8-6 in the 24/7 Sports recruiting rankings, the way things stand now, if they can go out there and land those 4 guys. A few other big announcements on tap for this week. You got Miles McVay announcing his college decision on Thursday out of East St. Louis High in Illinois, just right outside St. Louis, Missouri. Alabama's a crystal ball favorite. They have the number 2 class in the country. I like where the Crimson Tide stand going into that one. There was a time where I thought Oregon had some buzz, but really rocking with Alabama going into that decision. He's been there numerous times. Miles McVay is one of the more competitive offensive linemen in the country. He's a guy that was a camp warrior in addition to they compete hard at East St. Louis. That's one of the, if not the best inner city high school program in America. That coaching staff over there does a tremendous job of getting those kids ready to play against some of the best high school football competition in America. They develop players, and Miles McVay is the next one there to come out of there. And Alabama is the one to watch. But Coach Sunkett and company have good ones year in and year out, and Miles McVay is the latest. A couple of defensive linemen are going to come off the board this weekend. Kelby Collins is announcing his decision on August 13, and Cameron James out of Olympia there in Florida also announcing his college decision on the 14th. I think that for Florida's been considered the heavy favorite for Cameron for quite some time. Andrew Ivins and I have had him predicted to the Gators since the spring. Georgia went hard late, maybe gave him something to think about. But love where Florida stands for him going into the decision. And then Kelby Collins, they're battling Georgia and they're battling Alabama. Florida is for him. But a lot of the buzz is around the Gators here late. And those are 2 guys that I think those are national title contending type recruiting wins on the trail. If you talk about the athleticism and what the explosiveness and the power they bring to the point of attack there. Those are guys that make plays behind the line of scrimmage, and 13 sacks for James last year, 12 for Collins. They get after the quarterback to tackle for lost machines. They're physically ready to go with high upside ability. Florida, they have the number 13 class in the country right now. We talked on Whiparound in earlier episodes. We love what they're doing at wideout. We love pieces like Gavin Hill, who they have in the fold, a 6'3", 255-pound 4-star defensive lineman. To go out and get Cameron and get Kelby, that would help remake a defensive line room. They've remade the receiver room in this class. Can they go out and overhaul a defensive line room and continue to add to pieces that they landed in 2022? I think Shamar James is going to be one of the best linebackers in the SEC. Chris McClellan's an explosive defensive lineman that they beat Oklahoma and Ohio State for in the 2022 cycle. Devin Moore and Kamari Wilson are high upside guys in the secondary. Jack Pyburn and Jamari Lyons are guys that made a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage in their high school career. So I like the way Billy Napier and company are building it. But Kelby Collins and Cameron James would be massive recruiting wins, if not. I talk about those receivers, but I may say that if they're able to land these 2 guys, that would be bigger recruiting wins than the receivers, because again, in the SEC, you have no chance of consistently winning week in and week out if you're not winning at the line of scrimmage. And those are guys that I think could take Florida to the next level. Now, we'll see what Kelby does. Feel really good about Florida for Cameron, and we'll continue to stay on top of Kelby Collins going into his decision. Speaking of decisions, it's not happening this week, but Andrew Ivins had the news that five-star receiver Hykeem Williams will announce his college decision on September 23rd. My crystal ball is still on Texas A&M. So is Ivans. That's who we're hearing collectively, the one to beat heading into the fall. We'll see if Florida State can flip that, or Pitt, or Georgia will continue to plug away at that one. Georgia's in the driver's seat for another four-star receiver, Tyler Williams, maybe Anthony Evans. So their receiver class is coming together. But Hykeem Williams has his decision date locked in. Still like the Aggies there. 2024 rankings. We're going to update the 2024 rankings on the 24/7 Sports Network this week. They'll be out tomorrow afternoon around lunchtime, and there'll be some tweaks and stuff with what we saw this off season. But I want to talk about a recruitment of 3 high-profile guys in that class. Desmond Rix is the number 2 overall player, cornerback from Virginia, who's playing at IMG Academy. Recently named some finalists. When I look within that group, I think that you have Alabama near the top. That's a program that has really blown him away with what they're able to do year in and year out. I think Miami and the excitement around that program and some visits to Coral Gables really moved the needle for Desmond Rix, and Miami is certainly a team to watch in that recruitment. And I'm not sleeping on Florida. The Florida Gators are a program that I think has a lot of momentum on the recruiting trail. I think that their infrastructure is really coming together, and you're starting to see those results pay off with some of these big recruiting wins that we've seen this summer. And so I'm interested to see what happens with Florida in the Desmond Rix sweepstakes moving forward. A couple quarterbacks that are uncommitted. The number 1 overall player in the country, Dylan Raiola, is committed to Ohio State, but you have Jaden Davis and you have Julian Sayin, and a lot of the same schools are involved with both of these guys. Georgia and LSU are major contenders for Jaden Davis. They're major contenders for Julian Sayin. I would say Alabama is the other contender for Julian Sayin. And talking to my colleague Greg Biggins, who's as close to that recruitment as anybody, Greg Biggins has Georgia crystal balled for Julian Sayin and believes a college decision could come sooner rather than later. Those 3 SEC programs and UCLA are in the mix for Julian. And then with Jaden Davis, Georgia and Michigan got visits at the end of the summer, and I think he loved both of those visits. I expect him to get out and see some games this fall and then take his official visits in the spring. LSU, like I said, is in the middle of that one. So is North Carolina. Clemson's a major contender for Jaden Davis. I may have left out some schools. He's taken some visits to Alabama, but I know I feel good about Michigan. I know I feel good about Georgia. I think LSU's done a good job in that recruitment for Jaden Davis. North Carolina and Clemson are a couple others that I know he's very excited about. So 2024 release on 24/7 Sports. You'll be able to check that out on our site tomorrow, and then certainly a lot of great programming on this 24/7 Sports YouTube page. From Preps to Pros with Cooper Patagna and Andrew Ivans on Mondays and Wednesdays. You have The Block with Carl Reed and Blake Brockermeyer. We're your home for commitment, some of the top prospects in America committing on our platform moving forward. And I appreciate y'all tuning in. Chris, Jason, Trey, thanks again. I'm celebrating a 10-year wedding anniversary this week, so I will not be back on this week, but look forward to catching y'all next week and unpacking what happened on the trail and looking ahead to the high school football season. Thanks again.